Did I miss something? I had to walk away or my door cracked open. Are we ready?
I think so.
Okay, well, I will call to order this historic meeting of the Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Commission. Historic, and hopefully it's the first and the last virtual meeting of our Planning Commission. Before we get into our business, I'm going to ask David Lumsden to give a bit of the ground rules, emphasizing, of course, everybody should mute their machines unless they're called upon to speak. David?
Yes. Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, I wanted to run through very briefly for our attendees who can hear and see us, but they themselves cannot be seen or heard quite yet. When the commission calls your application forward, you should see a button on your screen to raise your hand. Becky, you did it before. I believe is it on the bottom of the screen? Yes. Okay, it is located at the bottom of the screen. At that point, Tom will click, Mr. Bernstein will click the allow to speak. He'll allow you to address the commission, answer questions, business as usual for the commission. And then at that point, we'll stop your sharing and proceed on to the next application. If anyone is here in an attempt to make comments on an application, when that time comes, you'll raise your hand just the same and wait to be addressed by the chair or by the commission. And I think that's it for now. So back over to you, Mr. Bernstein.
All right, thank you, David. One last point. David has, by way of PDFs, all of the application materials. So if anybody wants to see a plan, he has the ability to throw it up on all of our screens to look at the plans, almost all of the plans, don't you, David? All of the application material.
I have every application as well as, I'll say, simplified packets for each. I don't have every single page, but the important ones.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Should it be necessary? It's Walter Cordes. I have the original applications at my house for each of these. Should there be additional details that David doesn't have on the briefs?
Good. Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, from here out, it's just a regular meeting of the Planning Commission. We'll begin as we always do with the review and a vote on the minutes of our last meeting. Of course, we missed a meeting in April because of you know why. So we're going to be voting on the March 2nd meeting minutes. We've all had a chance to review and critique those. Members of the commission, what's your pleasure relative to those minutes?
I move approval of the minutes.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. I think everybody said aye or raise their hand. David, did you, just to reiterate, if you press your space button temporarily, that serves as a walkie-talkie and you can talk unmuted. And then once you release the space bar, you're muted again.
For Planning Commission members, yes.
Correct. Well, let's move on to our applications for appropriateness. The first request is that of Luinda Lee Arnold at 805 Ivy for solar installation on the rear of the house and also for black aluminum fencing. I see from the attendee list that somebody named Arnold is there. Lee Arnold is listed, and I believe the hand is raised. Before I call on you, Ms. Arnold, I will explain. If you have never been to the Planning Commission, we give you as much opportunity as you want to address your application to the commission, keeping in mind that we've all had an opportunity to review your application. We know exactly what you're looking for, but we do like to meet you, first of all, and hear about what you care to say about the application, and we'll take it from there. So I think this will work. Where's my mouse? Ms. Arnold, you're unmuted.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the Planning Commission today. As you pointed out, I have two applications in front of the Planning Commission. The first I'll just go to is the simple one. It's a fence in the backyard. I already have fences on the property behind the house and on, let's see, I guess it's on the south side of the house. And this would be just a fence and a couple of gates that extend the fencing on the north side of the property and just close off, I guess it's the east side, so that the fence is fully contained. I have a dog, Australian Shepherd. She's a herding dog. She likes to herd things. And I just think it would be nice and safe if she had a contained backyard and she can herd all the squirrels and birds and stuff like that she wants. And I don't have to worry about people walking on the street. So that's the purpose of the fence. The fence, I selected a design, aluminum, has a older appearance, matches the fence on the south side of the property, the stack poles fence. Sorry, I haven't memorized their address. And I think that's probably about it.
All right. Why don't you, since you've got the microphone, Ms. Arnold, why don't you go ahead and explain your application relative to the solar panels, and then we'll turn it over to the rest of the planning commission members to address and then to have a vote.
Yeah, the solar panels, it's the goal there is to replace the essentially electric bill with a solar bill. So there are enough solar panels on the south. Let's see, they would be south facing, and they're all in the back of the house. They would not be visible from the frontage. There's also some solar panels on the south side of the garage. The garage is detached. And again, from the frontage, you would only see the edge of the solar panels. I don't think you could see anything from the frontage of the house for the solar panels that would be on the roof of the house. Beyond that, I don't know what details you might be looking for that probably aren't already in the application.
Tom, you're muted.
Oh,
Sorry about that. Again, we've all reviewed your application, Ms. Arnold, so we're very familiar with what your proposal is. It's nice to have the introduction. It's nice to meet you.
you
So
too.
with that, I will turn it over to the members of the Planning Commission if there's any discussion, questions, ultimately a vote. Members of the commission, what's your pleasure?
I have a question. I drove by the property and I noticed that it looks like the rear L of the house, I think it's a T-shaped house, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that you can see part of that rear wing or that rear L from the southeast because the street curves. So
Okay.
my question is, how close to the west edge of the rear wing will the panels be located? How visible will they be on that wing?
Honestly, I've only seen the drawings from the solar panel or the solar provider. I don't remember, I don't know the exact distance or how visible they are from that wing. I do know that because of the trees that are located on the property and the requirement for the amount of sun that needs to hit the solar panels, those are about the only place on the house that they can be located and meet the energy requirements to replace the electrical.
Well, I think generally we're in support of alternative energy, and the language in the zoning doesn't prohibit visibility. It just says to minimize it. So appreciate your efforts to do that.
Yeah.
David, excuse me, Ms. Arnold. David, do you have the image of her house, the roof line, if you will? That was
I
part of the
do.
application?
if you can give me one moment
I'm
here.
holding it up as well.
Yeah, that's what made me think of that. Walter's holding it up, but it's difficult for me to see at least.
I'm trying to pull it up. My internet connection has now decided to be this. This is a perfect time to be less than reliable. So let me, if you wouldn't mind giving me just a moment here for it to finish downloading, and I will have it pulled up for you.
All right. Well, do the best you can. We'll let the others on the commission ask questions and so forth.
I will let you know when I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, here we are. This is the application. Just a moment. Okay, here we are. Can everyone see that?
Yes. Beth, does that address your issue? It doesn't show the road in relation to the house.
Here's perhaps
That's a little better.
an aerial view that might be a little bit more helpful.
Well, based on what I saw from the street, I would say probably two of the panels on the west end of the wing will be visible from the road.
Mhm.
We do, and so I just thought that the commission should be aware of that. Maybe 2 or 3 panels from the west end. We did approve solar panels on a home on Fountain Avenue that are not close to the road, but are visible from the right of way during the winter.
Yeah,
Beth,
Beth,
I agree with you in your earlier statement that the zoning review process stipulates that the solar panels the owner should minimize their exposure to the street. I agree with you that the applicant has done a good job with that. That if you look very carefully at an angle, you can see several panels, but I think it meets the spirit of the zoning code.
yeah, Beth, the way I process this, I think of this compared to the house on Ivy where we approved the panels. And to my way of thinking, you really have to know where to look for the panels, know that you're looking for panels in order to see them, especially during the summertime. Winter, they're a little bit more visible, but I think of this house kind of in the same situation. The curve of the road lends some visibility, but you really have to know where to look in order to see these panels. That's my perspective on this one.
Well, I think probably the most important thing is that they are on the rear, that they are set parallel to the pitch of the roof, and that they are black or gray. I mean, they'll essentially blend in with the shingle, the roof shingles.
Ms. Arnold, they are flat, aren't they, against the roof?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Other members of the commission?
My question was, are they going to be what's considered triple black? So black frame, and then the cells themselves are black, and then the cross pieces within the cells, between the cells, are black. Those are the ones that typically don't cost any more.
If that detail wasn't provided in the permit submission, I'm happy to check with the solar panel or solar company and make sure that they apparently, if it's all the same to them, and make sure that that's done. So you want black, black, black.
Correct. It's called triple black.
Got it. Triple black.
Other members of the commission? I can't see all your faces, but I'm guessing we're ready for a motion. And keeping in mind, we have two parts of this application, the fence and the solar panel.
On the fence, my question is, has she spoken to both of the neighbors about this, and have they had any comment on it?
I spoke to the stack poles. I have not spoken to my neighbors on the other side. I'm happy to do that.
It is not a requirement, but just to be good neighbors, it's nice to not have any surprises.
Yes, I understand that. That is good policy.
But generally, it's the type of fence design that we prefer. It fits in well with the village, and you said it's going to match the other fencing that already exists.
Yeah, I believe the property to the south of me has a pool, and so that requires, I think, a 5-foot fence. And so mine's only going to be 4 foot, but it's the same design as theirs.
Yeah. All right. Members of the commission, further discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve both submissions as submitted.
Hey, on that, Randy, on that point, or on the for your motion, did you want to make it contingent upon it being triple black, the solar panels?
We do not have triple black in our requirements. It's a nice thing to have. And we've let some people go without it. It just makes it fade into the roof. So we can't require it. But, it would be nice if they could get it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes in our motions, we don't make it a requirement, but we make a real strong request. And I think that request has been expressed here. So I think we're ready for a vote. Any further discussion before we go on to the vote?
Well, we need a second, so I'll second.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard one, but that's fine. Further discussion? All in favor, unmute yourselves and signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, looks like an unanimous vote. Ms. Arnold, thank you. Welcome to Glendale.
Thank you, sir.
And I think
Good
you'll
to be
need,
here.
yeah, reach back to Wally, and if there's any required permits, building permits and whatnot, Wally will be able to help you with that.
Right, briefly, I'll turn this into our building department. They'll be in tomorrow. It takes about a week to turn around a permit. We'll call you when it's ready for pickup, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much.
Aye, thank you.
Moving on with our applications, the next request is of Jeffrey Witte at 14 Little Creek for a conditional use permit for a rear yard swimming pool. I think you all realize that for conditional uses, we are not the final deciding body. We are merely a recommending body to Village Council. So we'll begin our review as we did before with hearing comments from Mr. Witte. And once we complete our discussion, the final vote, the final motion will be by way of recommendation to council. Mr. Witte, I don't see your hand is raised. There it is. I will allow you to talk. I think you're on mute still, it looks like. There you go. If you heard how we operate, with Ms. Arnold, if you wouldn't mind, please introducing yourself, describing your application, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. We bought the house on Little Creek back in August. We'll be moving from Wyoming. Mainly, we were looking for a house with a first floor master, and we were also looking for property sufficient to do some accessory structures in the back. I currently have one collectible car, and we have a convertible. And I'm looking to get a second collectible car. So we have a proposed garage, which already has a permit issued. But the other project we wanted to accomplish was an in-ground pool. The pool that's proposed is a prefabricated single-piece fiberglass pool. It's going to be installed by Cincinnati Pool Professionals. We'll have a concrete deck around it. Ultimately, it will be fenced separately from the backyard. Listening to Ms. Arnold's presentation, I will have an application before the June meeting of the Planning Commission for a 5-foot-high aluminum fence encompassing the southwest corner of the property, then separately enclosing the pool, and then ending at the west end of the garage to be added. I was looking at some aerial images on Google Maps. There is a pool at the property immediately behind mine, and I believe one just to the east of that. And I believe there are already 5 in-ground pools in the Little Creek subdivision. So it's a fairly common addition in that area. There is a fairly extensive area of grass and trees behind my house before meeting up with the properties to the rear of mine. So there is some degree of buffer there in terms of visibility or noise. For my neighbor to the east, the pool will be almost completely hidden from view by the garage once it is constructed. And my neighbor to the west, there is a fairly large expanse of the backyard because I'm on a pie-shaped lot. But the neighbor to the west is also the chairman of the Architectural Review Board for the Little Creek subdivision. So I have been working very closely with Dave Aronson on my proposals and my specifications, and the Architectural Review Board for the subdivision, or the Homeowners Association, has approved my final submission. I have not yet figured in the price of the concrete decking, but the pool itself, installation, an electric heat pump, saltwater system will be a little over $60,000 for the entire project. So it's not anything that's being done on the cheap. It's something that's from a reputable manufacturer and contractor. Very extensive experience in the area. And it's something that's made to last and made to look good. And I think it's reasonably consistent with the other in-ground pools that I've seen either in person or aerially in Glendale. Also, I'd like to mention that it will have an electric retractable safety cover. So in addition to the fencing, it will be covered when not in use. That's not just a winter cover. We can flip the switch and roll the cover off when we're going to use it. And when we're done, flip the switch and roll the cover back onto it. And that'll keep animals, children, walnuts out of the pool, and also preserve the heat.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Witte. 2 quick questions before I turn over to the other Planning Commission members. The proposed garage that is shown on your survey, correct? Or I want to make sure that that's not a part of this application, correct?
No, that building permit has already been issued for that.
Okay.
So this application is strictly for the in-ground pool. And as I mentioned at your June meeting, I will have another application for the fence. I'm holding off on that until these other projects are at least started.
Okay. And another question actually for Wally. Wally, this property is or is not in the historic district?
Actually, I wanted to offer some more information to this. It is
Sure.
not in the historic district. There is a permit for the proposed garage, nor is this pool subject to the review, but rather the conditional use recommendation of council is what this hearing is about. I want to offer to the applicant that when I signed off on the zoning, your improved area for the pool was 5 feet off the property line, and it was compliant with our zoning. But I see on the plan that David is projecting on the screen that it appears to be 4 feet off the rear property line.
No, that's a little bit confusing because of the size of the diagram. That 4 feet, you'll notice, just has an arrowhead at the top. That is indicating 4 feet of concrete between the pool and the edge of the concrete deck. If you'll look just to the right of that, in the corner where the concrete deck and the proposed garage meet, It is 12 feet 2 inches. So if you subtract that 4 feet, will be just a little bit over 8 feet
Okay, thank
of
you for that.
grass between the concrete deck and the rear property line.
Thank you for that. So when you determine what the fence is, that will have to go to our building department to make sure that it's the proper height that has latching entry, ingress, egress doors, gates to it. But it would not go back before the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Mr. Witte. Members of the commission.
Well, there are 3 factors that we use to evaluate a conditional use, right?
Right.
Number 1 is the impact on the neighborhood. 2 is conformance with the village plan, and 3 is impact on traffic patterns. And I
Right.
think that the only one of these that really is relevant is the impact on the neighborhood. And the property owner that's going to be most impacted is immediately, is it south? I guess it's south, the Readers.
Yes.
And so I wonder what discussions you've had with them and if they're supportive.
The only discussions I've had with them was on another matter. I had a tree on the property line that I wanted to take down. Most of it was dead. However, the Readers are one of the homes behind me that has their own in-ground pool. It's partially shielded by shrubbery.
Okay.
And there's probably 40 feet or so between the property line and their pool.
I might also add that Assistant David Lumsden, by certified mail, notified all neighbors within a 200-foot radius should they wish to offer their opinion for or against. And David, have we heard back from anybody?
At this time, I believe Dr. Zobe, who is listed currently as an attendee, is the only resident, the only neighbor that has shown up or responded to the Zoom meeting.
Have we heard that anybody was opposed to this?
I have not.
Okay.
Let's hear from the other members of the commission, and we'll give Dr. Zobe an opportunity to speak if he wishes. In the meantime, members of the commission, further discussion? All right, seeing none. Dr. Zobe, if you want to speak, you have to click the hand, raising your hand. You don't have to, obviously, but I'll give you just a few more seconds. Oh, there he is. Dr. Zobe. Oh, looks like you're on mute. There you go.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for asking.
All right. Appreciate your attendance. All right, members of the commission, what is your pleasure relative to this request for recommendation on the conditional use?
I move to approve as submitted.
Do we make a recommendation to council to
Correct.
approve?
Correct.
I move to that we forward this to council for their approval.
I second Randy's motion.
All right, members of the commission, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I signify opposed. I see nobody in opposition. All right, well,
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom Lofty.
sure.
I'd just like it put into the record that I abstained from voting on this matter. It's not an appropriate matter, so I could vote on it theoretically. But of course, since it's coming to council, it would not be appropriate for me to do so.
All right, thank you, Mayor Lofty. Well, let's move on to the next application, request of John Creech. At this point, I need to turn the gavel over to Tom Kerr. My firm does some work with Mr. Creech's employer. So technically speaking, there may be a conflict of interest. So for that reason, I'm going to recuse myself. I'll listen in, I'll turn off my camera. I won't speak, I won't say anything, but you're in good hands with Mr. Kerr. All right, thank you.
Okay, on this application, it's for a swimming pool that's located partially in the side yard on Greenville Avenue. And understand it's already gone through, before it came to us, it went to the Board of Appeals where it was granted approval. I don't know if Wally wanted to share that as a predecessor to our discussion.
David Lumsden did forward the appeal by Mr. Creech to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they reviewed the irregular lot and decided it was a variance was warranted to allow the pool to be partially in the side rear yard.
Okay, so I'll open it up to any discussion. Any planning commissioners have any discussion? Okay. Does the applicant have any comments to make on this application? Okay.
Mr. Creech, you should be unmuted.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm John Creech. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate this opportunity. So yes, we're asking for a conditional use permit, actually 2 conditional use permits, is my understanding. One is for the in-ground swimming pool, and the second is to replace a portion of a split rail fence that runs along our north property line. I think you may have that information, with a metal type fence that is already on the property on the front of the house that faces Greenville Avenue. So we want to replace that as well. So we're asking for, I guess, 2 conditional use permits for those 2 things.
1 application and 1 conditional use.
Okay, great. And just like the previous applicant was talking about, actually the pool that we are looking at installing is the same type of pool. It's and it's actually the same company, Cincinnati Pool Professionals. It's a fiberglass in-ground swimming pool. I think it's about 14 by 35 feet in size. Your typical pool. We actually had one at a previous home before we moved here. We just purchased this house back in October of 2019.
Okay. And remind me again, is the fence similar to the style we've seen on the other? I can't remember the application. Is it the
right? And in the application there, I basically took a photograph of the portion of the fence that you can see. You kind of see it from the street, but that is the same type that we are proposing. Yep, there it is right there. So that's the part there that's existing. So we're going to take that same and run it on the north property line.
Okay.
And I guess I'll go ahead and answer this. We've spoken to the neighbors, Kim and Ray Wood, who live on the north. They own a property just on the north side. They do not object to a pool. The neighbors in the rear, the Viles, again, they have no problem with the pool. And then the neighbor on the actually the south side, Kathleen Kissing, she did not have an issue either.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other neighbors in the audience that wish to speak? Okay, I'll throw it back to the Planning Commission. Any comments, motions?
I move that we forward this application to council for their approval with a positive recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. And
Thank
with
you,
that,
folks.
I'll hand
Once
it
again-
back to Tom B.
Thank you.
Okay, once again, I want it recorded in the minutes that I abstained from this matter for the same reason as the previous one.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Acting Chairman, did that include the fence request?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Did you hear me?
Yes.
So the fence is approved as submitted, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on with our next application of Jordan Barhorst at 30 East Sharon for a 4-foot front yard wooden picket fence. I'm not sure if Jordan is a he or she, but I'll, Barhorst, would you please give as much as you, describe as much of this application as you wish, and we'll go from there. Let me recognize you. And there we are. There. Mr. Barhorst.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My wife and I and little daughter are relatively new to Glendale. We've moved here about just under a year ago to 30 East Sharon. Yep, right there. We are looking to install a fence along the south and eastern front boundary line. There's already an existing fence and tree line in between the property to the west of mine. And so all we would need would be the fence to the south and to the east there. Company that's going to be working on it is Eads, pretty well respected company in Cincinnati. We will be painting it white, the same color that the trim of the house is painted. I think we've got the same paint left over from the previous occupant, so we're going to be using that as much as we can and match it as well as we can. 3 gates, one to the east, one to the north, to the west of the house, and one to the south where the current sidewalk leads up to the front porch.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barhorst. I did have a question. David, if you could show the picket fence itself. When I reviewed this application in the village offices, it seemed to me that there's too much picket, not enough space in between.
Yeah, so if I may, when speaking to the man at Eads, this was the best representation of the dog-eared picket that he had. And I should have mentioned it somewhere on the application, but I did not. He said that the 50% open requirement would not be an issue. This is just the best representation of the actual style of picket. Okay.
Because I think you probably realize, Mr. Barhorst, that once the fence is installed, we have staff that will check that. And I hate for you to install it and go through that expense and you have to go shave your pickets.
Yep.
All right.
Another question. Mr. Chairman, I can make a notation on the zoning approval that must be 50% open as well for Mr. Bly to review.
I'd appreciate that. One other question I had in reviewing this application, I saw that your plot plan didn't show the driveway, and that's not it. I'm just wondering how far this fence goes in relation to the driveway.
Yeah, so it's about, I think they said it was 3 feet off of the driveway. So the driveway is that red dotted line there. And it's about, it's 3 feet off of that, they said.
Okay. It's maybe a silly question, but you're not crossing over the driveway or blocking the driveway. You're going to run along the side of the driveway?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that red line is the property line from the Cages map. So that does not represent where your driveway is necessarily.
Sure.
But I want to make sure that you keep it off the driveway. It's a shared driveway, is that correct, Mr. Barhorst?
It is, yep. Yep,
Okay.
It winds back and then tees off into either side.
Okay. Other questions, comments, members of the commission?
I just had a comment as far as appropriateness. This is similar to 3 doors down at the Bogrand's house. It's a similar situation. So that's it.
Okay.
It's very appropriate. And I'm delighted it's going to be painted white. That's a traditional appearance.
The American dream, right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Is that Bob?
My only comment would be, you'd be a lot happier if you use a full-bodied stain in white rather than a paint. It'll last a lot longer. It penetrates in and won't peel as readily.
Okay, thank you for that advice.
All right. Any other comments, questions, members of the commission? If not, I entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the application.
All right. Was that Jill?
Yep.
All right. All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Kerr
Kerr.
seconds. Very good. All in favor, unmute your speakers and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Mr. Warhorse.
Thank you.
Welcome to Glendale.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move right along. We're making good time here. The next request is that of a certain Becky Terrell at 16 Village Square, an ADA ramp with railings.
Yeah.
Ms. Terrell, I assume you're relegating or removing yourself from the position of the recording clerk and stepping into the position as an applicant.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
If our secretary wouldn't mind keeping copious notes about this application.
I have it because it seems sketchy, honestly.
I know.
All right. Ms. Terrell, there we go.
Okay, so that's not the best picture, but as you may realize, quilters are not young people generally. So I have a fair number of relatively old and loyal customers, and I'm trying to make sure that they remain loyal. So we need to have an ADA ramp installed. And I had worked with Dan Mason to look at what would that mean on the building. And due to the ADA conditions of having it a 6-foot landing at the end, we couldn't position it, flip it to the other window because the 17 Village Square sticks out, and would also mean we have to move the bench, but there's not a landing position there. And then if we did it straight out, it would run literally into the street in order to get the right pitch on it. So we had to go left. The pitch of the sidewalk meant it was a little bit shorter. And it is installed, so I have to apologize for that because I was under the impression mistakenly that this was just a review for the railing, since it's an ADA ramp. But Wally had told me while it was being installed that the ramp should have been approved as well. So if you'd like to see it, it's out there if you haven't gone by it. But it's a black railing for the ramp and for the flat part. And we're actually, originally it was going to be a step up. Like if you see on the picture where the pot is, that was going to be a step up, but it's too tall. And so I'm going to have a railing on that side as well. So it'll just be a ramp up. So, but it meets all the ADA stuff. And there's another drawing with all the measurements and stuff on it.
Right.
That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Becky.
Other than I'm sorry again. No.
You're fired.
I know. Oh, somebody has to take notes.
No, let's just cut. We'll cut her pay. That's all.
I recommend approval of this application for a fence.
Well, it's not recommending; it's actual approval.
Yeah.
Well,
I
thought you
recommend
were.
approval. I'm sorry. I move approval.
All right. Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion is second. Any further discussion, members of the commission? Anyone in the audience wish to address this? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, all in favor, unmute yourself and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Terrell.
Hey, thank you. I'm reassuming minute taking now.
Very good. All right. Let's move on. Second to last application is a request of Lisa Mulblack at 805 Congress Avenue. Replace the side yard fence with a privacy fence. Miss Mulblack has her hand raised and you're on. Mulblank, I'm sorry. Miss Mulblank? Mulblanc, is it? Lisa, are you there?
Dean, do you think she's muted?
Everything looks to be normal. She's not muted. She's unmuted.
Oh, here, she raised her hand. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, I thought I called on her.
No, you did it correct. I'm not sure what the issue is.
Sometimes my audio just doesn't work in meetings, so maybe she's having an issue.
All right.
If it's
Well-
Tom, if it's okay with you, I'm going to attempt to promote her to a panelist. Maybe
That's
that might make this.
Yeah, do that.
If that doesn't work, I can call her quickly on my phone and put her on speaker.
Oh, she dropped off. Well. Oh, she's a panelist now. I looked on the wrong look. The video's off. Well, I suppose we can continue. If we have any drastic questions, we can loop back with her by way of phone or otherwise. Well, if you wouldn't mind trying to call her just in case. I think we can continue our discussion. It's a very straightforward application. If we have no questions for her, then it's a done deal, I suppose. Let me ask if there's any members of the commission who wish to address this application.
I have her on the phone now.
Okay. Is she on the speaker, Wally?
Yeah, David, you want to unmute me permanently for a second? Okay, Lisa, they should be able to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm having some computer issues.
That's okay.
Thanks so much for reviewing my application. We have a small pool. We just moved in November, and we're just trying to replace a 4-foot picket fence with a 6-foot high privacy fence.
Okay. And there it is. That's the existing fence. Can you see it on the screen?
I don't believe she can see, but yes, this is the existing fence.
So they can see your application on the screen now, okay?
Okay, great.
There it is. All right. All right. Well, members of the commission, any discussion? I know we normally, when issues of privacy fence come up, we remind applicants that the good side of the fence must face outward. I don't know if you're aware of that, Lisa, but that is a requirement of our code.
And I'm so sorry. Would you be able to repeat that, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you on the speaker. I don't know if you realize this, but a requirement of our code is that the good side of the fence, the more appealing side of the fence must face outward in this kind of a situation for a privacy fence. Wally, if she can't hear it, could you convey that message to her?
Yes, Lisa, our newest fence code requires the good side of the fence, the side that doesn't have the framing on it, to face the applicant's side, such as your property, and the bad side of the fence would face you, and the good side without any framing would face the neighbor. Is that compatible with your thoughts?
Yes, it is, exactly.
Okay.
All right. Members of the commission? Questions, comments, motions?
I think it's appropriate because it's in the rear yard entirely behind the back facade of the house. So I move to approve as submitted.
All right, motion, is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Green seconds. Further discussion, members of the commission? Let me look to see if any attendees have raised their hand. I see none. All right, all in favor, please unmute yourselves and signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Lisa. Wally, does she need to see you for a building permit?
Yes, Lisa, I'll turn this in tomorrow. We'll give you a call in about a week when your permit is ready, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Very good. Moving on to the last item on our agenda for appropriateness is the request of Ted and Susan Leonard at 765 Ivy to replace the windows on the original structure. Mr. Leonard, I see, is here. If you would, there you are, raise your hand. I will allow you to speak. Mr. Leonard, I think you've been on enough to see how we operate. We give you an opportunity to describe your application. and we'll take it
Okay.
from there.
Thank you, and appreciate all your time. And Beth, it's good to see you again. She was kind enough to come by earlier today to talk to us and look at the windows. We just recently purchased the property, 765 Ivy, and love the house, but we've noticed several problems with the windows. Several have broken panes. There's wood rot both on the storms and on some of the windows. There is paint flaking on all of the windows. And so for energy efficiency and other reasons, just appearance, we would like to replace these. The windows that we have selected, it's the best window that Anderson offers. It's their 400 series Woodwright window. That is it's a wood base and wood frame window. The only part that isn't wood is and a casing that surrounds the outside that's made of their Fibrix material. So it should be maintenance free for quite some time, and appreciate your consideration.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leonard. Members of the commission, questions, comments, discussion?
Well, I did have the pleasure of meeting Mr. Leonard and his wife today at their new home. And I acknowledge that the Anderson window that they have chosen is very high quality and appropriate. But I also tried to talk them out of it. The windows that are there are original to the house, which was built in 1936. And they appeared to me to be in very good condition. And so I acknowledge that in the zoning code, they are entitled to make this substitution. In terms of materials, we just want windows to be similar to adjacent pivotal and contributing buildings. But at the same time, the guidelines discourage replacing original windows in order to preserve the character of the building. It seemed to me that they could be repaired if the owners desired to do that. And that in terms of recouping their investment, that since they're spending about $50,000 to replace the windows, it'll take them probably about 50 years to get their money back. So anyway, those were my comments, and I get the impression that they still want to go ahead.
Can you hear
Mr.
me?
Leonard, yeah, is that Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Are the windows all sized to fit the openings exactly so that there aren't any spacers or fillers around the windows?
Yes, they are. Each window has been measured, and actually these are inserts. So the framing around the windows will stay there. It's just the window itself that is being taken out.
Okay.
And I would also like to add, and Beth, again, I appreciate your time coming out and your concern. We are very concerned also about the appearance of the house, but also the maintenance and the fact that there would be ongoing maintenance with the current windows. It's 65. I really don't want to be getting up on a ladder and cleaning and painting the outside of windows and replacing the caulk. It's an investment, and if you're looking at just energy savings, I realize it would be a long time to recoup the investment, but it's it's more than just the energy savings that we're looking at. There's the maintenance, the upkeep, and quite frankly, the appearance on the street.
I have another question. Can you still hear me?
Yes, you're good, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay. I assume these are double hung windows with window weights, right? With the cavities on the sides with the window weights in them. Is that right, Beth?
Oh, the existing windows? Yes.
So one thing you might want to do is have the installer put some insulation in those voids. They can do that before they slip that window in.
Okay.
That'll be quite a
Yeah.
saving for you and make it a lot more comfortable.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a space in there probably about 6 inches, 5 to 6 inches wide, and as deep as the wall is thick, running all the way up both sides. And that's a lot of air.
Okay. Again, I wasn't aware. I appreciate the information.
Sure.
That's true. And that's where most of the air infiltration comes from, is from those side pockets and the meeting rail.
So question, this is Dan Mason. Question, is the intent that all the lights in the windows would be matched? Like I see 12/12, I see some 6/6. Didn't know if that was the intent, that everything would be matched.
Yes, everything, the count for each window is going to be the same. And the grids, based on the requirements for the village, will be interior and exterior and have spacers in between. So we've done everything we can to follow the guidelines to the best of our ability. I don't think we've missed anything.
All right.
You did your homework. We like people who do their homework.
Very good. All right. Seeing no further discussion, or is there any further discussion, members of the commission? Is there a motion from any member of the commission?
I'll move that we accept the application as presented.
All right. Motion
Second.
from Bob. Second from Mr. Green, was that right?
Dan.
Oh, Dan, all right. Let everybody, would you unmute your machines, and all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay, fair
Sorry.
enough. No, that's perfectly legitimate. That's why we're here. So the motion carries. Mr. Leonard, thank you. Congratulations. Welcome to Glendale.
Thank you very much. We very excited about being here.
Good.
Mr. Leonard Walter Cordes here. I'll turn this in tomorrow to our building department. Give us about a week and we'll contact you when your permit is ready to pick up the paperwork.
Very good. Thank you very much.
That concludes our items for appropriateness. I do have one other item of other business that's not on the agenda. It relates to an email that you should have received this afternoon. As you all probably realize, the village council is meeting this evening after our meeting here at 7 o'clock. Part of their agenda is to address the conditional use application of the Bethany School. So we've sent to them our recommendation, but just as a matter of protocol, I drafted what we've termed a recommendation resolution. Yeah, resolution of recommendation. And that's what was sent to you all mid-afternoon today. Hopefully you've had a chance to read it. There's really not much meat to it, other than it's a vehicle to get our recommendation in front of the council. The real meat of it actually is the minutes that are attached to that. Of course, you've read the minutes and you're very familiar with those. Again, as a matter of protocol, I'd appreciate a motion to approve this resolution so that we can forward it to the council for their consideration at 7 o'clock.
I move approval of the resolution. Ha! I'll second it then.
All right, I'll let Becky decide who moved and who second. Any discussion on that point? All in favor, unmute yourself and signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Once
All right.
again, Mr. Chairman, I'm abstaining from this vote. because of course, it's a conditional use application, which is going to be before council in less than half an hour.
Yeah. Is that your way of saying hurry up?
No, you guys are doing fine.
Yeah, we're making good time. Is there anything else, any other business that needs to come before the commission? Mr. Mayor,
I move we adjourn.
motion, is there a second? There's a second from Tom Kerr. All in favor, unmute yourself, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried, we are adjourned. David, we just hang up now, huh?
You just hit leave meeting and then go on about